This is Kate Harding, and she just wrote a book called Nasty Women. What is a nasty woman?
That's a great question. To me, a nasty woman is someone who is outspoken, who does things that are not expected of women necessarily, and who holds firm to her beliefs no matter how many people tell her that she should be quiet, that she should be demure, that she should be retiring.
But the word nasty has such a negative, harsh connotation. Is that the brand that you want to carry around with you?
It's a bit of a reclamation. I should say that I didn't write the book. I am co-editor with Samita Mukhopadhyay, and there are 23 essays in it by different feminist writers. And when we were trying to think, what encompasses this this group of diverse voices and really says what this is all about, it is that matter of reclaiming the title of nasty woman as a positive thing.
Well, wouldn't it just be easier to come up with a new brand name? Because that, as soon as you say nasty women, I just think of women who are just mean-spirited and go out of their way to be right no matter what, and to abuse the other person for their even thinking that they're wrong.
We're looking at it is that if telling the truth, if speaking truth to power makes us nasty, then fine, call us nasty and we'll wear it proudly.
Well, let me ask you another question. What's more important, standing in place, calling people out, not backing down until they admit that what you're accusing them of, they really are, or finding an opening somehow where you can talk to this person and just communicate rather than fight with them and maybe move this whole process up another notch?
Sure, I think it really depends on the person, on the situation. I don't think everyone can necessarily be persuaded. I think we're intensely polarized politically right now. And there are conflicts, there are debates, and people are talking about, oh, well, how do we achieve unity? How do we move forward? And my thought is, I don't know that we need to be talking about unity as much as we need to be talking about all of us moving in a direction toward progress.
Well, I disagree. There has been a very specific move to divide us, to say things that about you that are going to inflame me, that are going to flame you, and maybe we should take another step backwards rather than trying to move forward and untangle this mess, recognize we've all been had and manipulated, and then start a process where you could see where you were once the same country, the same people, with the same ideas.
I absolutely agree that we have been manipulated and divided, not only by foreign entities, but by our own media, and by propaganda, by clickbait, by all sorts of things that have come to define the media landscape over the last 10, 12 years. But I think those divisions were beginning long before that, too. And at this point, I think the important thing for me is how to move forward. I do think it's important to be able to speak to people who disagree with you and to try and look for those points of common ground, even if it's something as simple as, do we both believe that kindness is a good thing? Do we both believe that compassion is a positive thing? Okay, if we agree on that, then let's try to untangle how we got so far apart on what those things mean to us and on how we want to live those values. I think those conversations are important to have, but I also think that, people ask me a lot about modern feminism and who are the leaders, and I think a thing that has both positive and negative consequences is that it's emerging as a leaderless movement. It's very decentralized. And so a lot of it is just sort of doing the work with your own community, with your own people, to move toward a goal that's over there. And if we're all moving toward it, maybe we get to that goal without necessarily having to have the same fights over and over.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and by doing it that way, you create a foundation for the issue in the individual community.
Although I also think if we wait for the entire community to agree on people's human rights, we might be waiting a long time. I think in many cases with civil rights, with gay marriage, etc., we did, even with interracial marriage, we needed those laws to then kick off the real cultural change that happened, and then a couple generations later you start to think, oh, of course this stuff should be part of who we are as Americans, but they were much more contentious. And when you put these things to votes, you tend to find people vote against the human rights of their fellow citizens.
Now, the book that you just wrote, or edited, I'm sorry, what exactly is in the book?
Sure. Samita and I have known each other for years within feminist journalism circles, and she did a piece for Mike.com where she was working at the time, a video piece talking about how she had worked on this essay about what it meant to elect our first woman president. She had filed it, she had gone to the Javits Center to celebrate, and then said, you know, as people realized what was happening, the Javits Center became the feminist zombie apocalypse, is what she calls it. And she realized she had to go back to a newsroom and tell a bunch of young journalists who worked for her, who just dry your tears and write this headline. She teared up in that video. It was very moving. I saw it. I said to her, my God, we could do an anthology of the essays we didn't get to publish with all the feminist writers we know. And that was a little spark of it, but then it became something very different. We wanted to try to do something constructive and positive with that. Sorry, I'm looking for the right word because I want to say energy, but it was an energy that was depressed by...
An energy, and what would you do with this energy?
First of all, it was great to be able to work on the book and to have something, a productive thing to do. I think some of our ideas for moving forward are, as I was just discussing with you, thinking more locally, thinking more about who's in my community that I can connect with on a human level and work with them on projects that improve things locally, because federally we're such a mess right now. Like, how can I do good? How can we live the values of kindness and compassion? How can we refuse to accept the dissolution of liberties and freedoms that we have assumed were intrinsically American up until this point, where we find out that maybe America is something else. And also reckoning with a lot of the things that led us here, with the white supremacy that has always been there, with the misogyny that has always been there. A lot of it is out in the open now, and it has just, until now, been smaller groups of activists saying, this is here, it's a deep vein in American society. Now we actually have to reckon with that and talk about what it would mean to really deal with it and move forward.
Well, is there room for men in the feminist movement?
I think there absolutely is room for men who want to be allies to women. I personally don't have a problem with men calling themselves feminists as long as they actually live as though they are. I do think that we've seen women's leadership emerge in the resistance, as it were, since Trump, and starting with the Women's March, of course, the day after.
Well, if you wanted to have men in the movement, what do you have to offer them?
I mean, honestly, if men don't believe that feminist and anti-racist values are a good enough reason to be in the movement, I don't feel obligated to offer them anything better.
That's fair. Well, the name of the book is Nasty Women, and this lady is anything but. She's really looking forward to changing things in a way that's going to make it a little fairer and a little more equal for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Stewart.